I promised you last week that it would look different in here this week. And it looks different. And some of us were here yesterday getting everything back put together. And believe it or not, on one day Friday, they pulled all the old carpeting and laid all the new carpeting in one day. About 7:30 to about 7:30, about 12-hour process. And now, we're not done yet. Next week will look a little different. Half of the furniture for out there will be in this week. Half. The other half will take another 3-4 weeks, even though it was ordered 1st of June. And we still have a coat rack and a coffee station and some other things to go in out there. So we're most of the way, but some of the stuff that's going to really make it look nice is still on its way. Thank you for your patience. And it couldn't have been much better with our weather. You know, through the summer we had 3 Sundays we met outside, and all 3 of them were about 72 degrees. And it was just wonderful, and we have a lot to be for which to be thankful. Well, it's been a busy week here. I wonder about your life. Hope it's been a good week. We have so much to be thankful for. I was looking as I was driving in this morning, going past Mundelein High School. On the east side of the building, there's like 4 sugar maples, and they turn this brilliant red normally, and they're very beautiful. And normally about the middle of October, they start to turn. And if you notice, last week in September, they were at the height of their color. And this morning, all the leaves are basically down. We're about 3 weeks ahead of last year, earlier last year, fall. Or maybe it'll just be more spread out. And I heard Alex's comments about the Yankees and the Indians. It is. If by destroyed you mean we self-destructed, then yes, absolutely. But I'm glad the Yankees won. Alex can smile and have a warm thought as he gets his very much diminished paycheck again this week. Last week we started and we looked at the first half of the 23rd Psalm. The psalm that's probably the most beloved, the one that's closest to us, that we're most familiar with. And I want to do the second half of that psalm today and read out a psalm, the 23rd Psalm, verses 4 through 6. This is a newer translation. We all almost know it from the King James Version. But even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and you anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There's some qualities here. This is very much a psalm that's written from an intimate perspective, an individual's experience of walking with God. And so we need to keep that in mind. And I'm not going to take it in order. I'm maybe a little out of order. But the first thing it says is that God is our provider. It's easy to forget this. We live our lives and we think thoughts like the company provides or my checkbook provides. A job provides, a savings account provides, and in some measure that's all true. But I think we need to live life and we need to remember that God provides. We must also remember that no one can prevent or stop God's grace and provision from flowing to us. We live in such, I think, constant fear and anxiety that every twist and turn that will stop the good, the benefits, the blessings that flow to our lives. And really, nothing can stop what God provides for us. Sometimes we don't even get in touch with that until we're emptied from some of the things that we're used to. There's some other things, this verse, some odd imagery, at least to us. It says in verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. That is a very strange phrase, because we spend billions of dollars collectively as a country to buy products to keep our hair from being too oily. Just watch a commercial to put a shine, a sheen, and you don't want to have a greasy head, and all the things that we do just to keep this from happening. And here's this wonderful imagery of you anoint my head with oil, and we think that doesn't sound too pleasant at all. It's strange words for us. Well, a couple things going on. That was an ancient ritual in the Near East. If you came to someone's home, if you came to someone's abode, and they anointed you with oil, that is a sign of you are welcome here. You are expected. You are welcomed. We've made provision for you. We want you to know that you are our honored guest. And we have stopped all our activity just to prepare for your arrival into our home. We do the same thing. We do it a little differently. We have two different ways of welcoming people. We kind of have a surprise pop over that we didn't think about. Someone says, hey, I'm going to stop by in 10 minutes. That's when we frantically run around the house and pick everything up and throw it into the room, and we shut the door behind it. That's the one room. And everything else looks kind of picked up. And then there's someone you prepare for, you know about. It's been on your calendar for weeks. And it's a couple days beforehand. You start to vacuum and you dust and you do all the things, and you make sure everything's in order. You bring out this decoration, you be sure. It's October. I still got the August things out on the mantle. I gotta take those down and put the little pumpkins on the mantle. We prepare to be sure everything looks just right, because we want this person to feel welcome. We want our best foot forward. When the psalmist says, you anoint my head with oil, what he's basically saying is, God has stopped all his activity just to be sure he welcomes us into his presence. God is preparing for us. There were times in my growing up years, there are times in the past, the church has almost treated God as the big demanding presence that just waits for us to wander across a line so he can get us. And it flies in the face of the imagery of Psalm 23, when God is doing this activity just so we know that we are welcome. I think we forget that. The other thing about anointing our head with oil shouldn't be that far from us. When we got away a couple weeks ago, we went up to Mackinac Island, and it was that first kind of cold front went through, and it was in the 60s here, and a couple days there it was in the upper 50s, and there was that brisk north wind, not unlike today. And my wife and I, we rode our bikes around the island, and we spent a lot of time walking. And we got to about dinner time, and we looked at each other and kind of said something on the order, did someone bring the chapstick? Well, we're out of practice. It's been humid. It's been warm. We don't think about it in May and June and July and August. And all of a sudden, we were there, and we're hoping that someone brought something, because things were starting to sting a little bit. And we forget that this was written in a very arid desert climate. And after weeks and weeks and weeks, a little oil on the skin might have felt kind of good. There's something about God's presence that should be soothing and take away the rough edges. One of the things that I think I've learned is that grace smooths out the rough spaces. Hopefully, grace smooths our rough edges. A few weeks ago, on the way back from Mackinac Island, we stopped in Manistee for a couple days, and there's this one area. It's kind of this deserted stretch of beach that my wife has found and ends up liking. And one of the things that she does when we're there, it seems to be well known by the locals, we stumbled into this, as the best place on that western shore of Michigan if you want to stop and just comb the beach for lake glass. And so we spent about 2 hours. She spent about 2 hours. I spent about 2 hours just walking, occasionally looking down to see if I saw anything. See if we can find some lake glass. See a lot of brown. We get a lot of green. The wife really likes it when we find some white. And occasionally, she really gets happy if she finds a blue. But what happens then is, once you kind of take them out of the water, they get that kind of dull look. And she was saying, I need to get one of those maybe rock tumblers or rock polishing blankets. I could get these all shiny again. And one of these days I'm going to do it. One of these days I'm going to get all these shining. And one of these days I'm going to make something out of this and use it as a centerpiece or something. It's kind of an example, I think, what God does with us. God smooths out and takes away our rough edges with His grace. One of the prayers I used to pray as a parent is I would say, God, when my best efforts fall short, when my best work as a parent is not enough, my prayer is that you will fill in the gaps and take away the rough edges with your grace. So maybe a good prayer for all of us is, please show me my rough edges. Because you have a soothing, smoothing presence. The last thing from this verse is my cup overflows. I hope we have enough. I think most of us have more than we need. We also must be very willing to understand and maybe actively seek out this difference between wants and needs. We spend an awful lot of time worried about things that we've grown used to. So just this week, I got a notice in the mail a couple weeks ago. The notice said there is a safety recall on your vehicle. So I called up and made an appointment on Thursday, 8 a.m. I took it in, and something about the fuel pump, and they said, we have the part ready, and they'll take about an hour and a half. I had the computer, I had a book. I was just going to sit there and wait. About 50 minutes later, they came in and said, Mr. Ward, well, we did have the part, but we took your fuel pump out, and the housing that it's in is cracked, and we don't have that part. And it'll take about a week or week and a half to get it. And because it's a safety recall, we can't let you take that back. So we'll give you a rental vehicle on us. So I took in my little tiny Toyota Corolla. And somehow out of the deal, I got a GMC Acadia. So that's what I'm driving around. No, I didn't get a new car. And that's why I drove here today, because I told Michelle, as long as we got it, we're going to put every mile on this thing that we can. I'm going to beat this thing to death before I turn it back in. Sometimes we're so worried about what we have to give up, we forget that I think what God gives us in return is a little greater. I was momentarily a little upset that my little tiny Toyota Corolla was taken away, and now I got a GMC Acadia to drive around for a while. They can take their time finding that part, by the way. We need to spend a lot less time in life worried about what other people have, as long as our needs are met. And our needs are often not as material as we think they are. God is ultimately our provider. He's also an active presence. The fourth verse says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I went back because I just liked that terminology. That's what we read this morning. Even though I walk through the darkest valley. One thing I'm going to admit to you, valleys are real. We all go through them. Collectively, as a culture, we seem to be in one right now. That does not mean individually you need to be in one, but collectively. The good thing about crises, the good thing about valleys, is they are temporary. We can't outlast them. What we tend to do is we try to fear and avoid every possible valley. And the first thing, if you're in the middle of a valley, if you're in the middle of a struggle right now, let me just tell you, it's okay. It's okay. We all go through them. This doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're missing out. It doesn't mean that you're somehow substandard at a lower level of Christianity than anybody else. It's all right. They are reality in life. It says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, we all walk through them, I will fear no evil. I'll get that in a second. The one thing we also need to understand about this relationship is sheep, I think you've heard, sheep are not the smartest animals that have ever come along. They need guidance from time to time. Can I also say, there are also times when we are not the smartest animals ever to come along. Sometimes we need to be lifted up above our own level of thinking, because we will get ourselves into a corner when left to our own devices. I think the psalmist is also realizing there are also predators. Predators out there that seek to destroy sheep. There are predators out there that seek to destroy us. There's a big enemy out there that seeks to destroy us. Oh, there's lots of people out there that will try to tear you down or bring you down to their level. I don't even think they try to do it. It's not this overt design. I just think they want company down where they live. And so they'll bring as many people possible. I saw something this week. And I'm not making a political statement because it happened with the earlier president too. I saw awful comments about the earlier one that shouldn't have been made. And I saw people actively happy that the president came down with the virus, actually rooting for the virus to kill him. Now, when the people did it beforehand, that was wrong. It seemingly, I look back at junior high school, and I think, why would anybody want to go back to junior high school? I look dorky. Maybe I still look dorky. Don't tell me. When people were serious, I thought they were joking. When they were joking, I thought they were serious. I didn't know up from down. I just wandered through a day just utterly confused. If I brushed against a girl accidentally, my brain went off into 20 different directions. I couldn't think for about 2 hours after that. It was a terrible, terrible time. Why would anybody want to continue junior high years? And then I look at what I saw this week. It seems for a lot of people in our culture, they still are living in the junior high years and haven't gotten past it. People just want people down at their level. We also need to realize there is evil in the world. There is one who seeks our ultimate destruction by any means necessary. I remember a line from the Screwtape Letters. There was a senior devil, Screwtape, down to his nephew Wormwood, and he was trying to teach him on how best to undermine humanity. And this was at the start of World War II, and the phrase was, do you want, Uncle Screwtape, should I try to make my subject, he's talking about the person, a pacifist, or should I try to make him militant? And I'll never forget the response written by C.S. Lewis in here. Screwtape writes his nephew and says, it doesn't really matter which way. Just make him so much on board for either one of those that it diminishes his love for Jesus Christ. Anything can be the avenue with which we are weakened. Now, there's also reason not to fear. The next thing out of the psalmist is, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. There's two reasons why. The first reason is we know that evil does not win. Jesus rose from the dead. Evil has been defeated. Death has been defeated. We know that. It's already lost. Do not fear it. The second reason is here in the psalm. God has promised to walk with us, because even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil because you are with me. If God is with me, with whom shall I be afraid? Look at what fear does. Read the newspaper. Look at the news tonight. Look at what fear does. We have been spooked in the corners. We walk around. How many of you have had this happen? You're outside taking a walk on the sidewalk. And you're going towards someone, they see you coming, they go, oh, wow, way over here. We've been behind masks for so long. We're not used to seeing people's faces. Everybody's become a potential enemy. We steer clear of everyone. There are churches this morning who turn people away from the door. I'm not making a statement about any policy. I'm making a statement about self-preservation being the highest goal, even overreaching others. We assume the worst of everyone. Then we wonder why we are seeing what we are seeing. Let me encourage you with one thing this morning. God is with us. We are now 30 days away from the election. The other night, did you see the preschool argument that was called a debate? I've seen more intelligent discussion next door at Serendipity. And I've also heard, I saw people the next day on social media, is this the best that America has to offer? I wanted to jump up and say, no, why would you expect to find that amongst the politicians? If you want to find the best America has to offer, go to the single mom who works every day to keep her family together. The school teacher trying to toss together 8 different lessons for all the online environments and the remote learning and everything else. Look there. Look to the guy that rushes home after work so he can get the Little League field ready. Because it rained. He wants to be sure the kids have a nice playing surface. Look there. I can think of 8,000 places to look before I'd even think to look at a politician's office. Your life, your legacy, your future, your joy is not and will not be determined by anybody winning the election, even if it's not your guy. I am old enough, I've been through elections where I have not been happy at the end of the day, and I've been through elections where I've been overjoyed at the end of the day, and the next morning I've both woken up in the same mood. And the last reason we shouldn't fear is because we have the promise of forever. This last thing is a perfect trio. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. In the old King James, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. There's 3 qualities. I'm playing little tricks with the translation. Goodness, a life of morality, a life of integrity, a life of holiness. We have lost this idea of goodness in a culture that is coarsening rapidly. You cannot say, I love Jesus, smile at church, and then live like you want from Sunday at 1 o'clock to the next Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Worship is not what happens here for an hour. Worship is what happens in our lives in all those hours. By the words we say, the decisions that we make, the thoughts that we think, the way we treat other people. Mercy, a softness toward others. Do we lean toward grace and forgiveness, or do we lean toward a harshness and a judgmental character? I'm going to give you a challenge. You ready? Here's a challenge I think almost everybody in here can do. Your challenge is each week have one purposeful, healing conversation. It can be with a waitress. It can be with a bank teller. It can be with someone you almost bump into at the grocery store. Look at them. Take an interest in them. Have curiosity. Ask them questions. Get them talking about themselves. Ask them to explain the tattoo that's on their arm. I don't care if you like it or don't like it. Have one healing conversation. Take an interest. Let them know somewhere in there that you care about them. That's the goal. Not some other thing. Not, oh, let's let them think we're caring about them so we can ask them something else. No, no. End with that. That's the goal. Start to be those kind of people. Surely goodness and mercy and love. Love is always acting in the best interest of others, being open-hearted, extending outward. It is a lifelong pursuit. Not a decision or just certain words to say. This is a life of action. These are the characteristics we should have. Because there's something else at the end of this. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I like the way this ends. This life is going somewhere. Your life is going somewhere. These days are not all there is. You not be at the place where the writer of Ecclesiastes is. Everything is meaningless. Life is meaningless. It's all meaningless. Whoever dies with the most toys does not win. He who dies with the most toys is at the exact same level as the one that died with the least toys. What matters is a life of faith. And this life is going somewhere, which is why we can trust the shepherd who's taken us in that direction. Which is why we can live a life that doesn't fear. Because regardless of what happens here, this is only just but a beginning flash compared to what's to come. Let's live like it.